Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain and welcome back. Now today I want to do a slightly different video. As you can see on the screen, I'm playing some Overwatch, but I wanted to kind of talk about the different games in this sphere, because obviously you've had Overwatch be this kind of runaway titan that it is, and yet you've had a lot of back and forth about who was ripping off who and which game was better and all that kind of thing. And especially considering that I was much more drawn towards Paladins and stuff like that, and as I've only just got hold of Overwatch, I wanted to kind of have a chat about kind of what's which games I prefer, which parts of which games have done things well, which have done things more poorly, as well as some other games around this area that kind of stand out to me and are things that I want to touch on. And so as a result, that's kind of where I'm going to start just going over a few things today. So the first thing, and I think this is one of the biggest things about the whole Paladins and Overwatch thing, is that a lot of people have looked at the two of them and gone, one's a rip-off of the other. And it bugs me that people don't pay attention to the timeline of which game was coming first, which one had more of its content released earlier, and stuff like that. But then the thing that bugs me even more than that is that people ignore the fact that convergent thinking is a thing. People come to the same conclusions about stuff because of the other influences that are around, because of the things that work well together. For instance, there have been games for so long where a highly mobile individual with a rocket launcher has been key to a character concept, all the way back to kind of 16-bit like side scrollers and things like that. You have had that kind of character in various games. TF2, which is kind of one of the areas where the team shooter has kind of come from. That very obviously is the highly mobile individual with rocket jumps with the rocket launcher. Slow-moving projectile that deals a lot of damage in a splash when it hits. Yeah, it's from a highly mobile individual at the other end who's doing the firing. So is it any surprise that in Overwatch you have Drogoz, who is a dragon with a rocket launcher who can fly. You've got the same with Farah. You've got the same with Benedict in Battleborn, which I will go back to Battleborn later on, which is why I mention it here. But when you've got those kind of things, you've got so many character kind of concepts and things that just work very well together in gaming, and rather unsurprisingly you find them all in one way or another being represented in these games. It's no surprise whatsoever, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, so it shouldn't be something that gets complained about. No one's ripping anyone else off or anything else like that. It's just a very straightforward, simple and easy way to create characters and to work things around. So with that out of the way, I kind of want to go in and start talking about some of the stuff in regards to the actual kind of way that these games play. And I want to do that by focusing on the positive stuff. So what does Overwatch do well? Well, firstly, I don't feel the price tag is fair. It's half a game, in my opinion, because it is PvP only. And yet, even now, so long after its release, it's still maintaining its full price tag more often than not, which is why the only reason why I got my hands on it was because it was on sale over the Black Friday kind of weekend, where it was priced, in my view, reasonably. And then on top of that, they have loot boxes there for people to throw their money into additionally. It's not all unlocked through play, it's not all unlocked through other bits and pieces, it's always random chance. And whether you've unlocked that, whether you've acquired that loot box through play or otherwise, it's random chance. And that does bug me, but it's not as bad as it could be. I'll get onto that a bit more in a minute as I start going into this, because the thing that I think Blizzard have done very well with Overwatch is how they handle their community. Right from the get-go, they gave us characters to invest in. They gave us kind of an interesting world to take the characters in kind of context, and so people got attached to that very early on. Following on from that, yes, they've had kind of a few issues here and there, but they have very kind of specifically responded to player concerns, player complaints and things, and they have made sure that there is a reasonable variety. I wouldn't say it's enough, but I would say that, for instance, you've got the quick play, which is very much your straightforward jump into a game. You've got the arcade, which is there for people who either want a bit more of a challenge but just want to get through stuff, or for people who just want to have some fun. And then you've got competitive for those who want to be competitive. And so, you know, in that, the rewards for competitive are hard work for a prestige item. It holds no real interest for me personally, and the whole competitive rank thing is something that people invest in a lot. I'm one of these people who sits there and goes, well, if I practiced a lot and played a lot, and then but had never decided to go into competitive because I didn't care about the rank, I didn't care about the golden guns, then, you know, I would still be able to compete quite happily against those people, regardless of what their numbers were and what my numbers were. This is why Smurf accounts are a thing. You know, you've got someone that has practiced and practiced, or played and played, got very good, and then they go back, start a new account, and they just, you know, make a killing all the way through their a good number of their matches to kick off with, because rather unsurprisingly they've already got a wealth of experience regardless of what the numbers on that account suggest. You know, it's one of those kind of things. And so, you know, moving from that onto more of the rest of the way that Blizzard handle its players, they have gone, yes, here's a cash shop, and you buy loot boxes, which I'm not in favour of. I'd much prefer direct kind of transactions. But they've also gone, you can acquire these in game. You acquire them through leveling up. You acquire them through the arcade modes for certain numbers of wins. You know, which again, 3 wins per loot box for I think it's 3 loot boxes a week or something. That's not bad at all. And then on top of that, you've also got a few of the arcade modes that, you know, the first time you play through this, you get a loot box if you win. You know, and so with that, it's reasonable. It's catering to the people who can just jump in and play one match, and that's all they can play. You know, the average gamer playing in the United States 6.7 hours a week. You know, that's because there are an awful lot of people who play games who aren't young, who have jobs, who have kids, and so on and so forth, and it's their way of relaxing. So they'll jump in on the weekend for a couple of hours a day, or they'll jump in each night for 1 hour or something like that, and so that's how it turns out for them. And so with that, I feel like Overwatch has done very well in regards to its player management, and in regards to the way that it responds to players, the way that it handles them, the way that it has made enough of a game environment for the majority of players. Because if you look at it, you've got your achievers who want the golden guns, they want to grind away at level, they want as many of the amazing skins as they can get. You've got the killers who are just there to kill people anyway, so it doesn't matter. They can be in competitive, they can be in 1v1s, it doesn't matter. You've got the social gamers who are just going to be there with friends anyway. The one area that I feel like it drops, they kind of let people down is and this is just fundamental to their game, is the explorers. Because once you've played each character, once you've decided which ones you like, which ones you don't like, you can either just continue to grind away and play that character, or there's not much else. There isn't an or. You've got nothing else there to expand with until they add another character, which, you know, where with this is where I'm going to start making my comparison to Paladins, because this is where the positive points are for Paladins. You know, where you've got these characters being released so infrequently, you know, new characters being released once every 3 months or something, if that, if not more, then, you know, it doesn't really leave a lot for people who want to explore things, who want to test things, who want to go out and find things out within the game and test themselves with those tools. You don't really have a lot for those people. You know, there's no PvE to test yourself against in interesting scenarios. There's no, even though they've shown that they can do that, there isn't a permanent version of it. There's no kind of build system or anything like that to allow you to either tweak your characters or to experiment substantially. You know, and that I feel is where Paladins does well. Paladins has the depth of play that Overwatch doesn't have. So it's got its build system where it's simple but it's effective, and where you can either build towards improving your character in certain ways, or, as with when I've been playing Buck, you guys have seen, I take one of the cards that lowers his reload speed, or increases his reload speed rather, lowers his reload time. And I've had people go, why don't you just take the reload speed thing from the items that you can purchase? And I go, because it doesn't feel as good. When I first get into a match, I want to be able to have a good feel for the character. And so having that, you know, just a fraction of a second to one degree or another, shaved off his reload time feels better to me as I come into the match. And then I can progress on top of that as the match goes on. You know, and that's not a thing that's possible in Overwatch, be it either for the sake of empowering a character and trial and error and whatever else, or for the sake of just tailoring the character just so it feels better to play. And so, you know, that's where I feel Paladins did better. Where did Paladins fall down, though? Paladins fell down horribly on greed and on the way that it's treated its players. Because at one point, they were listening to feedback. There was the feedback form on the front page of the game, on the lobby, for ages, and you would be able to submit your feedback. You know, you've broken Barrack. Why have you broken Barrack? Fernando needs this doing to him to make him kind of reasonable to play. Here are all of these things that, you know, this map has some holes in the ground that could really do with some fixing up. All those kind of things, and yet then they removed it. And then they started listening less, and listening less, and listening less. And now they've actually gone pay to win, essentially, with the new card system they are rolling in. And they went very greedy and very taxing on time and money with their approach to the VIP system. You know, two things, both the card system rework and the VIP system, both of which are things that players have gone, no, we don't like this, and yet they are being completely ignored. You know, the player management side of things has been appalling. The game depth side of things has been fine up until more recently, because you actually had that element of building your character, trialing things and working things out. And also, Paladins tried the permanent PvE thing as permanent challenges. And, you know, they removed that for the time being, and they said that they would work harder on it and bring it back. But, you know, that was a thing that Overwatch has shown it can do, and it can do it well, but it's not bothered to make it permanent. It's not bothered to make it a thing for people to invest in, and I feel like that's where some of their weakness is with that game. Now, there's one problem, especially, that I want to touch on that spans both of these games, as well as a whole load of other games. I feel like one game that didn't do very well, that got slapped around, actually had it right. And this is the issue of too many damage characters. And this is where, you know, in Paladins, you've got flank and damage, who are both just sets of damage characters, and then you've got the healers and the tanks. You've got in Overwatch, you've got your defense heroes, who are basically just damage dealers, and you've got your your damage dealers, who are unsurprisingly damage dealers, and then again you've got your neglected tank and healers. And so, you know, there's a huge problem with this. And I feel like the game, and this is one of the games that caused the problem with the animosity between these different hero shooters that have been coming out anyway. But I feel the game that did it well and got it right was Battleborn. And so, with Battleborn, and the way that they had their roles, you had tanks, you had healers, and you had damage dealers. But then you had the territorial characters. Now, the territorial characters were essentially jacks of all trades. They had a little bit of damage, they had a little bit of tankiness, and they had a little bit of support. And it was all thrown in on that character so that they could sit and try and bunker on the point, on the objective. And so, you know, whilst there are some characters that arguably, in a way, can do that, for instance, Bastion would probably be a good example, or Torbjorn, where they can set themselves up, they can buff themselves in one way or another, or heal themselves in one way or another. They've got damage and survivability in various ways as well. They're still much more focused on dealing the damage rather than they are on the other things, because, you know, Bastion can't heal everyone else around him, and Torbjorn with his turret gets kind of stuck there potentially when his turret is the thing that's doing all the work, and he becomes an inactive player, which, I'd like to think you can see from the footage I've put up, I like Torbjorn in a lot of ways. I actually quite like the way that his weapon works. And the speed that it fires and all that kind of thing as well. And so, you know, I try to play very actively as Torbjorn, because that's the way that I want to play. But the number of videos of Torbjorn plays of the game where he's sat there or he's dancing or something whilst his turret does all the work, you know, the YouTube is filled with those. So they don't fill that area because they are purely getting those things through damage. They're not getting those things, and they're not holding those things through kind of an even application. And I feel like that was something that the Battleborn did really well. It was its approach to role and its approach to teamwork and things like that, which again, when you look at Battleborn when it came in with its campaign and when it was selling itself as, oh, we've come from where Battleborn was, it was a disappointment to players. It was a disappointment to me, even because I was hoping for this big, new, more expansive IP with an interesting story, a la Borderlands, but it didn't really deliver on that. And then when it actually went free to play, it kind of mistreated the people that had actually, you know, didn't give us treat us particularly well, or give us half as much credit as we really deserved when it came to trying to reward us, you know. But then, as a result, looking at these games, and including Battleborn in this as well, the thing that stands out to me is if we had all of these different roles being worked on in the way that Battleborn worked on them, then took the build system that was simple and easy but added depth to from Paladins, and then you took the way that the players are handled with the different modes and things, just add a PvE mode and stuff onto the modes for Overwatch, and take the rest of Overwatch wholesale in terms of its player management and the way that it treats its players, and, you know, put those all together into one game, and I feel like you have the best possible hero shooter that would be available. You know, I don't think that would be a vastly difficult thing to do anyway. You know, have a system whereby you have small tweaks and small advantages that are gained just through an open build system. Have 4 roles, but one of them is a jack of all trades, and the other 3 are all highly focused. And then you've got the areas for PvE, where you can have lore and expansive, maybe not necessarily a campaign, but like mini campaigns, operations and missions and things like that, like the Overwatch events, like the campaign in Battleborn, like the PvE challenges in Paladins. But then also having the arcade for your more casual players that just want to either have fun or test themselves. Competitive, obviously, for the people who want to be competitive. And quick players, the baseline for the game. You know, with a monetization system that I'd probably be like, well, yeah, just give us a proper monetization system. Direct purchases, please. But, you know, it's one of those things that if you had to have loot boxes, then make sure that they are available through play, and make sure that they are reasonably available through play. You know, 3 to 5 matches or something per loot box seems perfectly fine, and make them available from all areas, so that you know, within that arcade, within that area that you're going to get it. You know, and stuff like that. Maybe improve the various bits and pieces, the various rewards from things like competitive as well, to actually engage other areas of the game rather than just the achievers and the killers and the people that get dragged along with those two groups. But you know, otherwise it all pans out, and it could all work out quite nicely as a game. You know, so those are my kind of takes on these games. And so when I'm looking at it and I'm now playing, you know, the game modes that I've quite enjoyed in Overwatch are things like Total Mayhem, which you saw in this video, as well as Mystery Heroes, which should also be in this video once I've put it all together. And kind of the Total Mayhem, just, it was fun, it was quick play but amped up, which was just entertaining. And also for people who are trying out new characters, with the lowered cooldowns and the higher efficacy of skills and things like that, it allows for you to get a kind of cross section, a you know, quick slice of what this character could mean. You can try stuff out more regularly. You can test the way that the character plays in a more safer environment, because you've got more health and stuff like that. You know, it's a nice trialing area to test things. And then Mystery Heroes, I thought would be a great training tool, because you know, you get that character, you want to win because you want the reward, and so, you know, you're going to have to learn to play each hero. You're going to have to learn to improve with each hero, and I thought that was pretty cool. I think that's a great idea for a mode, and you know, it's fun like that. But again, the thing that does stand out to me is that there are some characters that I've just meshed with very easily and very well from Overwatch, because you know, they are basically the same to one degree or another as the characters that I've been playing in Paladins. You know, jumping on a Roadhog after playing hours and hours of Makoa is, you know, very easy. But again, the thing that stands out is that that's convergence. It's hook followed by finisher on someone that doesn't go down easily. That makes sense. Yeah, if it was a hook and finisher by someone that could be taken out easily, then the finisher would never fire off, and there would be no point in that character drawing another character towards them. So the fact that that character type has turned up in MMOs, it's turned up in hero shooters, in MOBAs, in RPGs, in all kinds of different areas in gaming, it doesn't surprise me, and it kind of makes me glad that it's there. I'm not going to say that one stole the idea from someone else or this, that, and the other. No, it's an idea that's been around for a long time, and I'm glad it's here because I enjoy playing it. You know, so it's been interesting, and this is where, again, part of me felt that with the roles in each of these games, it's good to have that convergence. But then the other problem is that, for instance, you've got, say, Tracer and Reaper that are both arguably built on the same idea of highly mobile, kind of come in, flank with teleports and things and movement, and then take them out and then move away again quickly, you know, hit and run type characters. But they're in Overwatch, you've got the two of them, and they're fairly distinct. In Battleborn, you've got, again, another couple of them, and they're fairly distinct. I mean, you've got maybe more than that, because I guess Genji falls in there as well, and so does Sombra and whatever. But then looking at Paladins, one of the areas that I think they fell down with some of their characters was, for instance, Lex, Xin, and Androxus all basically follow the same overall makeup as Reaper. You know, they all have elements from that character archetype that's been thrown together for one game, and it's been there in the other in numerous different ways, and they don't really play differently. You move in quickly, you take someone out, and you move away. Yeah, they all have very highly aggressive ultimates that are all based around damage and hurting people, and then they move away. You know, there's not much variance in that. If there was more variance, then maybe I'd be more willing to give Paladins a free pass on this. But again, it's where you've had Paladins not pay attention to where the holes in their games are, and where you've had the guys at high res not pay attention to the fans and what the fans are asking for. You know, the number of times that it would be like, oh, it's another flank, oh, it's another damage, and the responses on the patch preview videos would be, oh no, not again. When Overwatch, each time there's been a new hero announced, firstly, there's been a lot of hype around it because people have been looking forward to it and they happen so infrequently, but also, you know, following up on that, it's a case of you've got a lot of people coming in and looking at it and going, well, what character do we need next? Well, we need a new healer, we need a new tank, we need this, that, and the other. And so, yeah, you do have your new flanks and damage type characters that are being put into the game, like Doomfist and Sombra and stuff like that. But then also you get drops like Orisa, and you get drops like Moira more recently, who come in and they take hold of areas that, you know, really weren't touched on as much before in Overwatch itself. You know, each one does have its own kind of space to occupy, and there isn't as much crossover as there could be. You know, there are elements. For instance, you know, you could easily go, Orisa is a mid-ground between Reinhardt and Symmetra's shield with her ultimate as a damage boost, which is fine, but her weapon is kind of a high fire projectile weapon, like Bastion's almost, and so, you know, you can. And I don't mean projectile in terms of the actual game mechanics, i.e. projectile will hit scan. I mean in terms of she sat there with her gun that fires things. She's not like using a laser or anything like that. And yet then she's got her own abilities in regards to her crowd control, you know, and in regards to some of her other bits and pieces. And it's interesting to see her use that to occupy her own space within the game. Whilst, you know, her other abilities are similar or only slightly different to other characters, they work in a different space, you know, and they complement each other differently. And so she has her own area that she can occupy. Whilst in Paladins, for instance, you had Fernando and Barak, and then when they brought in Ashe, who arguably is kind of the middle ground between those two characters, she didn't occupy her own space. She took over from those other two characters in what they had been doing up until that point, which was kind of sad to see for those of us that enjoyed those other two characters. But anyway, guys, I want to hear what your thoughts are on this, but the first thing that I want to say on this is I realise that people get very attached to their properties that they enjoy most, and there's been an awful lot of fighting around things like Overwatch versus Paladins versus Battleborn versus TF2 versus whoever anyway. And so, you know, when it comes to expressing your opinions, you know, be polite, be nice. We're all here to have fun, we're all here to enjoy games, and I'm talking about this stuff because I want to see games get better, and where everyone can admit that there's a problem with the number of damage characters and the number of or the lack thereof of healers and tanks in these games. You know, we can all see those things because you've got two areas that are entirely dedicated towards the the 2 roles entirely dedicated towards hurting things, and the other 2 areas are kind of just left by themselves. So, you know, I mention these things. I want to bring these things up into the discussion as a part of a positive discussion, so that we could maybe see either games get improved, games get reworked, or new games getting made with these ideas all being put together in different ways to make a better game that would be more open to more people, or that would work better for those that haven't been able to engage with these other games. You know, the depth of play in Paladins was what drew me towards it, but it was the, you know, that kind of kept me going with it, because it was a mix of practice, testing the build system, and seeing how things work, what worked, and then running with it. You know, the PvE challenges were things that it was a puzzle to put together, and once I'd put the puzzle together and I'd got people to work with me on it, then again I was able to just make it work and have fun and get rewarded for it. Which is why I'm actually finding Overwatch much more boring, because it doesn't have that depth of play. It doesn't have that kind of element of testing and trying and working stuff out and stuff like that. It's just a case of go in and fight people, and that's dull to me, because the matches roll out the same way. It's either things go really well, and you win, or you lose. There's not, as much as you might be practicing characters that you enjoy or whatever else, it doesn't have any other depth to it. It doesn't have anything else to it that I really mesh with, you know. And so I'll enjoy playing it with friends. I might do the odd other video on it on the channel, but for the most part, like, it's not something that really holds my attention for very long. And so, you know, as a result, would I love to see games like Overwatch and Paladins and Battleborn and TF2 and whatever else being made that do hold my attention for longer, that I can engage with for longer with friends that want to play this type of game more? And so it's not just a case of me just joining in on an evening and then just going, I don't really care, I don't really mind. You know, no, I'd want something that I can get as much out of it as I play with my friend or friends or whatever, as I go, and I want to see kind of more of that. But anyway, guys, as said, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the things that go into these games, on the way that they treat their players, the way they handle things, and you know, otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you found this at all interesting or useful, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.